Hello again, my fellow Renegades. Welcome back. Welcome back to the Renegade Society radio show. I am your host, Amanda McKnight. I am so excited to talk to my guest. I feel like I've been just waiting forever and also watching all of the interviews that we've had with this guest. So I'm super pumped. So we'll get to that in a second. But before we jump into it, I have a couple updates for everybody. So we do have Clank in Space, Adventures Pulse Arcade, which is coming soon. If you haven't already checked this out, it looks super cool. I personally am a huge fan of like old arcade games and like pinball. So I'm really excited for this expansion. It's now available for pre-order actually in the US. So you definitely want to add Clank in Space, Adventures Pulse Arcade to your gameplay experience for those of you that have Clank in Space. Just make sure you already have it, because if you get it and you don't already have it, you'll be like, I have this awesome thing, but I can't really play it with my game yet because I don't own it. So yes. We also have Agretzko, the game, which is based on the anime of the same name. And I know so many people that are huge fans of this anime. And that is now available for pre-order. That game was actually made in partner with Oni Games. So you know it's going to be awesome. You know I already am super psyched for it because I love Oni Games so much. And then we also are going to have our Twitch schedule ongoing, so make sure you're checking that out. We're going to be giving away a copy of the Wordlings campaign guide today, which is going to make a lot of sense, especially when I tell you about who our guest is. Our code word will be given away later in the show, so make sure you're checking the chat for that, where Desiree will give you the link. And reminder as well to ask questions if you have questions, because we'll be getting to those later, for my guest, Elisa Teague. Welcome to the show.
Hello.
Hello.
Great to
How? Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Also, I love like your whole look. Can I just say? I also love that we're both wearing red lipstick, so that's great.
Yeah, I have to wear the red lipstick. I mean,
yeah, of course. It's awesome. Yeah, so I mean, I feel like there's so many people that are part of the Renegade community that already know who you are because you're just so involved in so many things. And also you have tons of experience behind you just in so many different things tabletop. But for those who don't know, could you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and where we can find you and your work online?
Sure. That's a really long list, but I will get to it. Okay, so I'm Elisa Teague. I have been in the gaming industry for just over 20 years now, and I have worked for a few different companies, and I've done a lot of different things in the gaming industry, from inventor relations and product development, all the way through like art direction, graphic design, and into like production, pre-production and production work. So I've had my hands in a lot of things. And, I always say in all my bios, I really need to update my bios, and I do need to update my website for sure. But, they all say, I've worked on over 100 games. I've been saying this for years. It's true. I've worked on much more now. It's just like a nice, like easy way without listing a bunch of things. Yes, I've worked on over 100 games, but that seems really impressive. But I have been doing this for so long, and I've been doing so many things. But a lot of those, especially recently, has been game design and game development. And I've worked on everything from like really fun, like passion project type stuff to like some of my favorite games. Like I was able to design the sequel to Betrayal at House on the Hill. That's like a huge thing for me, because Betrayal at House on the Hill was always like one of my favorite games to bring to the table to try to get people into the hobby. And so, and I always talked about it so much. So then I, was able to design that. And I've worked on some really big titles, including my own line, which is the Geek Out line, which is a pop culture trivia, social trivia game. And, and that has, a lot of people know me because of that. And then a lot of people know me because I write a lot of RPGs, and I've worked on stuff for Dungeons and Dragons and many others. And I've kind of just done a little bit all around. But now I'm working for Renegade. And so I don't get to spread out as much, but I have so many fun things on my plate.
Yeah, especially as we sort of expand, I think like all of the tabletop stuff that we're doing with role playing in terms of what we have to offer at Renegade, which is very exciting stuff. And 100%, I think it's so cool. Like, it's just so cool how many games you've touched, but not just like all of the games and all of the RPGs, But it's one of those things that I feel like when people have a really long list, there tends to be like, oh, well, like, what have you done? And it'll be like a lot of stuff, but it might not be some of those big titles that you've heard of. But you have like a ton of big titles like on your resume. And that is so cool. I mean, it must be so cool for you, but that's also like such a huge accomplishment. I think it also speaks really well as to sort of how you approach design and, game design and writing as well. So, congratulations. That's amazing.
No, it has been. I'm very lucky, but I've worked very hard. So
Yeah.
it's a little bit of both. You just need to keep doing what you're doing, keep designing games, keep putting as much stuff out there as you can, and then people start to notice your good work. And then it's great when it flips from you, pitching your games to people coming to you to make them. And when that switch flipped for me, it was like a whole new world. I was approached to do the Kingdom Hearts Talisman game. It's like, oh, Kingdom Hearts, this thing that I love, and Talisman, this game that I grew up with, of course I want to design that. And so those types of opportunities have come a lot more easily to me recently, but that's really only in the last 4 or 5 years versus the first 15 of really hard struggling work that I had to put into it.
Yeah, grinding. Yeah, I feel you. And I mean, you definitely are, you definitely come across, at least, obviously, I haven't worked with you like necessarily in the industry, but you definitely come across as someone who works really, really hard. So thank you for all of your hard work, by the way, on all of these amazing projects.
You're welcome.
So when it comes to role-playing games and tabletop games, when did you first fall in love with them? Like, I know you've been playing them for a long time, but was there like a specific moment, even when you kind of felt a shift of like, oh, this is something I love, and this is something that like I want my life to be?
I've told the story a few times, but it's really, every time I tell it, I think I get new memories in my brain, of when I was growing up. I grew up in a house with a lot of game playing going on. I was really lucky. In my house, we had a room that we called the playroom, and my brother and I would, set up like massive, like basically miniatures war games as little kids, but with our action figures and stuff on the floor. And we had closets full of board games, and our parents really supported our love for, I guess back then we didn't realize it was like pop culture stuff, but what we would identify now as pop culture stuff. So we had, all of the Star Wars toys. We had all of the G.I. Joes and Transformers. We had the My Little Ponies. We had everything. And we were making up games with that. But on the other side of it, my dad loved strategy board games. And he and I used to play all of like the Avalon Hill games that with all the little tiny bits and really complicated rules for, a 7, 8-year-old to play. But, I was playing, Civil War and stuff like that at that age.
That's awesome.
And, and I actually still have my copy from when I was a kid of 1776, the Avalon Hill game as well. And so it's one of those things where it's like, I grew up with it. And then, as I became a teenager, I inherited Dungeons and Dragons books from my older brother, who I don't actually even really remember playing. I don't know if it was a thing where he got them with his friends. Maybe he did play them. I don't know, because there was a 5-year gap there. But he wasn't at home anymore. I was 13 and his books were there, and I got them and I read through them and I was like, oh my goodness, what is this? I need to play this. And I got into Dungeons and Dragons, and it kind of took off from there. And I already had such a passion for like everything fantasy growing up. And then that just fueled everything. I never, ever thought that it would be a career. I was never told that it was a possibility for a career. And I don't think that people really thought about it. When you're growing up and people say, oh, what do you want to be when you grow up? I mean, I had so many things in mind. And one of those things was being a fantasy author. And I held on to that for a really long time. And I guess in a roundabout way, I am again.
Yeah, but, you are.
But nobody told you could be like a game designer. You had to be, a doctor or a lawyer or a teacher or something. And you don't really think about where products come from, but they come from people just like us, right? And so it was really by accident that I actually fell into the game industry at all. I had gone on, tried to fulfill my dreams as a fantasy author, went to college for an English degree and then switched and got a degree in fashion design and manufacturing and apparel manufacturing. And then I took a break from the fashion industry, and my brother, who I grew up with and played games with my whole life, was starting, he had graduated from business school and he wanted to start a company. And we're like, let's start a game company. He's like, can you help me? And I was like, yeah, I can help you with, graphic design. And I know all about manufacturing because of my degree. And I never went back.
That's so awesome. I love that you say too that it was like this, almost like this thing you didn't even think about. And it's so true, especially I think when you're young too, if there's something that you really like just have fun doing that's considered, part of play, we never really are told like, oh, if there's something you love to play, like that can be your job, like because it just feels so weird because you're like, oh, this isn't work, this is like fun. So it's really awesome that you were able to find your way into it and that it all kind of came back. That's so cool. And how everything you did anyways kind of, I feel like ended up working into it at some point. So that's
yeah,
awesome.
I mean, the nice thing is that the fundamental skills that you need to be successful as a game designer, I had both through my college years, learning how to be a writer and learning that creative process, and then also learning about manufacturing and all of that when I went into fashion design school. So I had both, and it actually just meshed perfectly for this career. And so I guess just having the passion for what you want to do, and then also the know-how, you need to back that up with actual chops, and then for me it worked out really well.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love that. I love that story. It's so good. And when it comes to what was I going to say? When it comes to, I guess, role playing versus, board games, was there any kind of divide there with like, did you go from one to the other, or were you kind of doing both at the same time?
Both.
Yeah.
I definitely, in my younger childhood, it was board games, and not so much the role playing games until I discovered D&D. And then as a teenager, I still played board games, but it wasn't as much of a hobby for me as it became when I was in my early 20s and then on. But I was playing role playing games. I was playing Dungeons and Dragons. I was playing Cyberpunk. I was playing Vampire. I was playing all of those as a teenager. I was a little goth kid, and role playing games were all the rage in the 90s. I'm super aging myself. But yeah. So it was probably more on that side. I've always had a really competitive nature. So we would still play board games, at home a little bit, not as much. But I remember I used to, after school, when I was in high school, my friends and I used to go to a coffee shop. And that was a thing before Starbucks. There was no Starbucks. And we would hang out and do our homework and drink coffee and play board games. It was generally the board games that they had there. I was Scrabble master of that coffee shop for a really long time. Nobody wanted to play with me anymore.
Oh no. Yeah. I feel that. I feel like for me when I was younger, it was Risk was the one that I really loved. And I remember having not even really getting involved because I'm not a super competitive gamer. But because Risk has a tendency to bring out that nature in people and can get very competitive. I remember so many games that would just like devolve into arguments, and I'd be like, okay, maybe we just like won't play this anymore. But yeah, and I also feel like there are certain games too that like once you play them quite a bit, that does tend to happen. You get those people that are just like, man, I don't want to play this. I'm always losing. It's not as much fun.
I'm not going to throw the game. Like if anyone out there is watching that knows me, they know I'm not going to throw the game. That's how you learn how to play, is by being beaten a lot, and then you up your strategy.
Exactly. That is always how you learn how to be better. I think that's also the reason that I've never really been super competitive, because I feel like I do lose a lot, but I also am always like, oh, that's fine. Like I'll just take that and I'll just like put that in my head and come back with like a new strategy next time, which I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I love
So
it when I lose.
same. Yeah.
Because it's a challenge,
Yeah.
the worst thing is if I do win, I get bored. If I do win all the time, I'll get bored. And for me, I played, especially, during quarantine and everything, I've been playing a lot of games against the computer, so I
Mm,
have all of the, mobile versions of my favorite board games. And I stopped playing a lot of them
yeah.
because I beat the computer. I don't want to
Yeah.
beat the computer. I want like an extra hard level so I can like learn new strategies. I want to learn how to get out of any situation. And
Yeah.
you only learn that stuff by losing.
100%. And I feel like, yeah, I've been playing a lot of games online as well that are like board games and playing against computers. Do you find, are there any games actually when it comes to that you have found actually have like this AI where you're like, oh, this is super hard? Like for me, it's Patchwork. So Patchwork is a game that I play and I still haven't beat the hardest one on that. And I'm always like, how is this AI so good?
I'm gonna have to get that. I don't have Patchwork for mobile. Because it's a 2-player game. That's one that I play with my son all the time.
Yeah.
So that's one that I can play. It's the ones that have to be like multiple player games, and we don't have that many people in the house
Yeah.
that I've been playing. The one that has stood the test of time for me for a mobile game is Lords of Waterdeep.
Ooh, yeah.
And I do like it, even though I have a copy on my shelf. I will say, not having to set that all up and having it on mobile is really, really nice. So that one has really stood up a lot. I'm not going to put down any ones in particular that I think are a little too easy. They're all entertaining for a long time. It's just
Oh,
got to
100%.
the point where when you've played thousands of games, it's like, okay, I know what the computer's going to do, and I know my
I
best.
know how to manipulate it. Yeah, I know how to get through this. Yeah. I feel like Lords of Waterdeep is also really good because it's so customizable. I find with like a lot of the stuff that you can set everything up for. So I 100% agree. Oh, I love that. I love that mobile version of that. Actually, I actually don't think I have a like print version. I just have it mobile
It's an
myself.
awesome.
So
I mean, it's
it
one
is
of the
amazing.
favorite work
Yeah.
replacements, sure.
Yeah, oddly enough, it's one of my favorite games, but it's one of those ones. It's probably too the setup, and also that I love to play with a lot of people. So it's one of those things that, yeah, you definitely need to have people, which right now, not so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when it comes to actually, this kind of lends into what I was going to talk about next, which is I know you love puzzles, which I feel like kind of lends into sort of beating AIs and going through all of these things. So when it comes to puzzle playing, have there been any puzzles that you've like really loved that you've completed recently, or like just even in your life? And are there any that you're obsessed with like currently that you're like, ooh, this puzzle like just gets me?
Okay. I have a lot. I have so much to say. So there has been a puzzle thing that I have never finished
Ooh.
that got me and I put away. And I actually, it's funny that you bring it up because I just thought about it about a week ago. I was reorganizing my bookshelves and I came across the book. I actually have 2 copies of the book because I wrote in one of them, but I wanted one of them to be nice. And it's a book called The Secrets of the Alchemist Dar. And it's a storybook that has a huge puzzle hunt built into it. And what the author and publisher of this book did, this is years and years old. This is like 20 years old. At the time, the author and the publisher of the book did this huge thing where they bought these diamond rings, like gorgeous, like colored diamond rings, and they hid them in real life, like all over the country. And then they made this book. Yeah, right. And then they made
so cool.
And through solving the book, you could figure out where it was and find them. And then they got sued, I heard, when this was all really going down. It was before the ability to research as well as you can at this point on the internet. I haven't thought about the book in, probably 10 years or more. And so I really have meant to, I've just been really busy with work. I really have meant to go and research to see, like, did anybody ever solve this thing? But I would say, probably about 12 years ago or so, I put the book on my shelf and never touched it again because I was so frustrated with it. It was before I was really writing a lot of puzzle hunts, because I have since written things like this, maybe not quite to that scale, but very, very close. And so now I understand a little bit more about the puzzle hunt mentality, getting together a team of people. I think that if at the time I had a team to work with, I think, especially the people I know now, I think we could have cracked this thing wide open. But I hadn't thought about it, and I literally just came across it 4 or 5 days ago, maybe.
That is so cool.
So that's been like my nemesis puzzle thing my whole life. As far as things that I've done recently, most of my puzzle challenges that I have are doing escape rooms. And right now, there's not a whole lot of that. I did get to this year participate in the MIT Puzzle Hunt. And I was on a really fun team. And it was the first year that I've actually gotten to participate because the Puzzle Hunt every year, it's in Boston, and I'm never able to go because it's always conflicted with other work trips for me in the industry. Mm-hmm. And a bunch of my puzzle community friends go every year, and I'm always jealous because it's always been a thing I've wanted to do. But this year we're all stuck at home and it was all online. And so it was really great. I spent 3 days of no sleep, all the puzzles round the clock. I'm not kidding. Every meal in front of me with my friends. And it was really, really great. So that's like the most recent thing that I could participate in without writing. And then as far as writing stuff, just recently in the fall, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything, which is a Dungeons and Dragons hardcover book from Wizards of the Coast, came out, and I did write the entire puzzle section for that on how to put puzzles into your role-playing games with example puzzles that you could, drag and drop into basically any adventure that you have. And hopefully I'll get to do a little bit more of that because I have a lot more puzzle examples that hopefully we'll be able to put into future products. And so that's always been like a fun thing for me to do, and to do it for Dungeons and Dragons, obviously lifelong, two friends coming together. I have been able to do a lot of adventures for them in the past that have had a lot of like a huge puzzle component. And I do write a lot of their puzzle content for their live events. So this has kind of been a thing that I've been doing for them for a few years. And I was able to work on an awesome book, sort of like Secrets of the Alchemist Star, but a little bit different, which was also a novel called Maze of Games. And I did that when I was with Lone Shark Games. And it is it's not choose your own adventure, but it's a solve your way through the puzzle book type of storyline where solving a puzzle will direct you to the correct page to then read. So you can continue the story in chronological order, figure out what's going on. And there were layers of puzzles in there. It actually was solved just last year. I think it took 6 years
for someone to solve it.
5 or 6 years for a group to solve it completely. Like solve, get the very final meta answer. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Wow. That is so cool. That's such a cool idea.
Yeah. That's the brainchild of Mike Selinker, and I got help. And but yeah, it was a great project to work on. And I love writing puzzles. I'll write puzzles for everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like puzzles for me, especially when I think about like jamming a game, are so daunting. So it's also really awesome that you were able to sort of help people by creating sort of that book and the puzzle elements for D&D, because I think that's I personally, when people are like, hey, like, what do you think we should do for like a puzzle for something like this? I'm going to be jamming my first game, I think, in like a couple of weeks of anything ever. And one of the things I'm super nervous about is what do I do if I want to make something like super eloquent and cool, especially because the RPG that I'll be running is more of a like an improvisational, like you kind of do it as you go, so you can plan ahead, but that doesn't happen as much, and it makes me so nervous because I'm just like, I don't want to get somewhere and not know what I'm doing.
Don't be nervous. And just so you know, as a GM, your best plans, you can plan it all out and your players are still going to do something different. So don't worry about whether you have like a full adventure planned out or not, because they will take that and they will go
somewhere.
The best thing that you can do in that situation is whatever you did have planned, wherever they go, put whatever you had planned wherever. Yeah. And that's the best way to keep them kind of more on track. Or if you have time, it's not, if it's not a one shot, you're going to be playing with the same people for, weeks or months or years even, then let them go and keep the thing where it was, and they'll eventually come back. You'll figure out through gameplay a way to come back around. Let them go and explore. And, it's nice to have a couple of ideas in your back pocket of like what can happen if they go off track. And as far as the puzzles are concerned, the nice thing about the stuff that I did for Tasha's is you can put it in anything. It doesn't even have to be D&D. You can drop them in anything. And there's advice on how to blend it in, like what you can do to change the level of the puzzle. What happens if people can't solve it right away, if they're taking too long, what happens if it seems too easy, there are ways just to scale it. So
I love that. And I've played so many games too with other people in RPGs where it's like you have a puzzle and you're just like, oh, this puzzle's like impossible for our group and we're just like never gonna solve it. And my favorite thing is I've played with GMs who have been very good at finding ways to be like, oh, like here's like a hint, or like here's something you find that like will help you sort of figure it out, or like taking it and you can tell they've kind of just been like, oh, we'll just like twist this part so everything feels like still accomplishable. But then I've also played with the people who just like their puzzles are their puzzles and they're like, you sink or you swim, and you're like, oh goodness.
No, I have built into almost everything that made it. I gave them quite a few puzzles to choose from. The ones that they chose, almost all of them have ways out
like adjustable
that are, well, it at some point in time, if the puzzle takes too long to solve, I usually, even in my personal games that I run, I turn it into combat. So you're trying to move statues around and you have to put them in the right order and it takes you too long, or you do the wrong thing too many times. Those statues are going to come to life and you're going to have to fight them. And then once you kill them, you can move on. Right. But that's the penalty. But there should always be a way out, because you don't want frustration at the table and you don't want to stop the game. And, anything that, takes people out of it. Everything that I do is very in-world. It's stuff that you would find in the game. I'm not going to make you like go online and look things up and, stuff to take you away from being there. You shouldn't need to, look at your phone or look at a computer or anything like that. And you should still be in character, and you don't want to stop the flow of the game. That's the main thing. Like you never want to, it's just like a combat that goes on too long. And when a combat goes on too long too, you should just, move on. And so it's the same way I feel about puzzles.
Yeah, 100%. And I've played those games where I played the games where people have had to go to their phone, and I'm always just like, imagine if this was like our characters like in the game, we're like, let me just pull out this device that I have that solves all the puzzles. Yeah, great.
But yeah, so I included a lot of things in there, like how to scale, and then also how to give hints appropriately and for the proper type of character. So, depending on their race or class, they may get some sort of bonus depending on what type of puzzle it is, right? So if it's a musical puzzle, bards would automatically get bonuses to their rolls to like try and figure out something because they would know music, things like that, or if there's something with stones, like, oh, I'm playing a dwarf. I, should know all of this stuff about, the history of my people and the stone-cutting abilities. And and so there are ways that you can do that. And so I talk about that a lot.
I love that. And I love that it's like built in. I love that you build it into like the story as well. So it's not just like this, like, oh, we're people at a table who are telling a story. So yeah, it really keeps you in it. That's so awesome. I'm definitely going to have to check that out. I'm going to have to check out all of your puzzle things, I think, because I also love puzzles. Yeah, that's awesome. And that actually kind of brings us to our giveaway word, because it's kind of about that. So friends, I'm going to give you that code word for the Wordlings campaign guide, as we're about halfway right now through. So that giveaway word, which is 2 words actually, I'm sorry, I picked 2 words, but it's puzzle shark. Because I know Elisa likes to describe herself as a puzzle shark, which I love as a term, by the way. And friends, if you do have any questions for us, feel free to put those in the chat. We will be getting to them in a little bit. So, and Desiree will have that link for you. So make sure you enter puzzle shark. And as we move on, I was wondering, coming into sort of the Renegade wheelhouse of what we have going on, because there's a lot of exciting things that have been newly announced. There's just so I feel like every time I turn around, there's something new that we're doing with RPGs, and I'm just so excited. I get excited about one thing, and then a new thing comes along, and I'm like, oh goodness, now I'm super excited about this. I feel like a bundle of excitement. So I'm wondering, from our current wheelhouse of the stuff that we sort of already have, what is like your favorite RPG right now, and what do you love the most about it?
I feel like this is a very unfair question. I don't like the word favorite in anything, honestly. I recently did an interview, like a written interview for International Women's Day with Renegade, and I was asked what my favorite board game was, and I
So hard to
basically
answer.
said, like, choosing my favorite board game is like choosing between my children, right? Even if I had nothing to do with making them. Like, I have a lot of games. I'm looking right here at my game shelves. I have a ton of games, 2 tons, oh no, 1 ton. What's a ton? 2,000? Yes, I have a ton of games, just about. And it's really hard to choose my favorites of anything. Narrowing down to the Renegade offerings currently that are in print. I won't choose my own game, which was Wardling, because that's just a cop out. I'm going to say it's Alice's Missing.
Yeah, that's
I
good.
love this game. I really love this game. It's a hard game for me to play right now. It's really emotional. But it is so good, and I love emotional role playing games. The short format games, ones that are one session and done, and then you can play it again, of course. But it's a completely different game, not like a long campaign. I I've been they've been really growing on me in recent years. I'm not used to playing role playing games in that format. I didn't do a lot of convention role playing gaming as I was growing up, mostly because even though I had played for so long, I was a little intimidated as a woman, to like just go and sit down and play at a convention. And once I was not intimidated anymore, I was already working in the industry and had no time to play at convention because I
Yeah.
was working. I never really played like one shot games. And I've played in years long campaigns with my friends. In fact, I'm playing in a game right now with people that I've played with since I was, teenager, early 20s. And that's really awesome. I mean, not the same campaign, but I've had campaigns that have lasted 4 years. And so the one shot games, the small short format games like Alice is Missing has been really like something I've been turned on to lately. And the ones that are darker and bring out a lot of emotion, really, I don't know, it's so different. It gives you such a different feeling. I had this with 10 Candles a couple years ago. I became really obsessed with that game. And when I started running it, I would gauge how well I did by how many people were crying at the end. And I know that's like mean, but it's one of those things where I don't know, it's therapeutic.
Yeah,
To,
it's like a catharsis. It's like a release you get from those games.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's such an amazing bonding experience. And the unique thing about Alice is Missing is, first of all, it's played in basic silence. I mean, and the integration with technology is just so unique for role-playing games, because you traditionally think, okay, when you're playing a role-playing game, you're sitting around and talking the whole time. You're interacting, and here there's a lot of interaction, of course, but it's not the same. And it just it's just such a different play experience. There is this investigation aspect to it that I love, as a puzzly person, and just trying to figure things out, trying to figure out where my character is going to go in the story, and just having it all come together and wrap up at the end in this big, like, just emotional outpouring. I don't know. I think it's so brilliant. So I will say that's my favorite, even though I don't like playing favorites.
Yeah, your favorite for now, like your favorite today.
Yeah.
Like, I always think of favorites too, because I know it is a hard word to throw around, and it is a word that kind of says like this is above everything else, which is like feels a little elitist, I think. But I always say with board games, it's like when people ask me what my favorite game, I'm always like, well, my favorite game like today is, because it's like there's so many different things. I think right now Alice is Missing is such a powerful game, especially because of that emotional aspect, but also because of that technology aspect and kind of this way that it's like you're all very like close and integrated, but you're also kind of distant. Feels like so relevant. It's so cool. I still haven't played it actually, but I have been.
We should play.
Yes, yes, I would love to play. And lately, I've also been on this grind of just emotional RPGs. So I feel you. There's something cool about having that experience with people, and it's almost like creating a very safe version of like, I don't even know. I don't want to say it. It's like, you know, when you're in like some sort of crazy event with somebody where it's like, you know, something scary happens and you're with people, and then all of a sudden like that bonds you to them and you're kind of like, ooh, we like found this connection that this brought us together. It's like one of those, and it does it in a way that you're just like, wow, that was powerful. But then it's also safe because there's no real danger.
Right. These are the types of games that people tell stories about later, right?
Yeah.
And that happens with other role-playing games too. Like there are stories that I remember from, you know, Star Wars game I played 20 years ago, you know, I'm like, remember when we did this? And, you know, and everybody always still remembers through all of the years and all the different games. Like there are certain key moments, but games like these that just like bring out so much of you. And it is almost like living through a traumatic experience. It's fake, right? It's fake, but it feels so real.
Yeah,
you know, really
it's like allowing you to experience that kind of like experience while being safe and doing it in a way that you can kind of like also feel comfortable and like pull away when you need to, which is really great because it also, I think, brings up a lot of stuff that you normally don't get to talk about with people that like normally you wouldn't go into. And now you're like, wow, I'm like learning so much about not just like you and your interests. Like I'm learning about you as a, like your soul and your mind. So it's really cool.
Sure.
Yeah, super cool. And therapy too. Like I always just feel like there's so many games when I play RPGs where I'm like, this is like therapy, the game sometimes, us sitting around.
Yes, I was going to say the same thing, which is funny because exactly was the word I had in my head was like, it's great therapy. It really is.
Yeah.
It makes you talk about things that maybe you wouldn't normally. And role playing in general is very good therapy. Like therapy in general is very good. Like role play. Like if you're going to therapy out there, and I think that everybody should, by the way, it's a great thing. You know, part of therapy is role play. So doing it in a fantasy setting or in something that isn't real, where you feel safer to talk about those feelings, is pretty powerful and pretty great.
Yeah, pretty powerful, pretty great, pretty important stuff. And in a way too, it's like I always find out something new about myself when I play an RPG. It's like one of those things that I'm like, oh, that's interesting. Why did things you gravitate towards too, especially when you've played for years and you're like, huh, I always love this. What does that mean? That's interesting. I love that stuff. When it comes to the new stuff that we have coming up with Renegade, the stuff that we've sort of announced and we've talked about, is there any of the new properties that you're sort of the most excited to work with coming up? I mean, not to pick favorites, but
all of them, I'm very excited about all of them. I mean, I am so lucky. I just want to say that to be able to work. First of all, I have an amazing team of writers working with me. And I am so amazed by everything that they know and, you know, come up with. And I have, you know, these lore geniuses on each of these properties that know the ins and outs of everything. And I am I always say that like I'm a pop culture like black hole. Like I know a lot. I mean, my game geek out is basically based on the ability to recall everything about everything, right? So I do know a lot, but there are certain things that these writers just amaze me. And we're all lucky to be working on these great properties. So the first one, obviously, that's coming out, we've already announced it, is the Power Rangers role-playing game. And we have such an amazing fan base, like players that are playing Heroes of the Grid. And I cannot wait for them to, you know, get their hands on this too. And it is just, to be able to take a thing that you love and you grew up with, and play in that world is something that I think everybody, wants to do, whether you're like a little kid putting on a costume and going in the backyard and like pulling out your lightsaber or whatever, and like pretending you're in that thing is like, I don't know, everybody's dream, right? You watch movies
Yeah.
like, oh, if it was me, if it was me. Role-playing games allow you to, do that if it was me. And so for Power Rangers fans, we're building that for them. We're saying, hey, you can be any ranger you want to be. And I'm not just talking about the existing rangers that are, over, the course of the show. I'm saying, do you want to be a, Blue Ranger? Do you want to have this type of background? How did you grow up? What are your influences in your life? You can take all of these things and put them together and build your own Ranger character. Zordon's going to call on you and your team, and you are the Power Rangers team. You'll have your own Zords. They're custom. You get to do whatever you want to do and go off and play in this world. And I'm just so happy we get to like bring that to people. And then we get to do it again for G.I. Joe, and we get to do it again for Transformers. So no, you're not going to like be playing, Optimus Prime, or anything like that. You get to make up your own character. What kind of vehicle are you going to be? Right? What is your motivation? What is your rank within, like, are you an Autobot? What is your primary function? Right? And so you get to create all of that and go off on adventures. And so that stuff is really exciting, and it is coming along so amazingly. And I'm just really, I don't know, I just want it to be out already. I know everybody does. But it's been a joy to work on for sure. And then on the other side of that, of the RPG stuff, let's get away from, fun, bright colored cartoons and stuff. We have the World of Darkness. And so we are also putting out, to start with, all of the Vampire 5th edition stuff. So we're starting with reprints of the core rule book, Camarilla and Anarch, and we are going to have some really fun surprises being announced soon. Can't talk about them, but we have a full docket scheduled of releases to support the fans, to support the community and the family, and everybody is going to be so happy when they hear all of the stuff that we have coming soon. Brand new material coming.
Man, I am so excited for that. And yeah, I love that there's like this, it's like we have everything. We're just like, we have all these really bright, like bubbly properties. We also have like all of the darkness and all of these like spooky, scary things that I'm just so excited to dive into. Yeah, I'm also, you said custom swords, and I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot wait for custom swords. It's going to be so cool.
It's really, really cool. It's so cool. And this, well, I'm not going to say any, I can't do spoilers. I'm not hot, so I can't do spoilers. But yeah, cool stuff coming along.
I'm so pumped for that. Is there any, in terms of these new properties, is there any like element from that world that you're like super interested to play with? Like, for example, like the Zords and the Megazords and stuff that we have for Power Rangers. Is there any stuff that as you're sort of diving into these worlds again, is there anything that comes up with you that you're like, oh, I'm interested to see like when we kind of put this in, like where this will be or what it'll be?
There's something that I really want to say so bad, but
you're like, I can't say it.
Spoiler, I can't say it. But I will say this. I have always been interested in the social and political dynamics of good guys and bad guys. And the very, very thin line in between. And so people watching, take that however you want to. But there are not only, like when I say we're going to be supporting, Vampire the Masquerade, we are also going to be supporting these other properties with a lot of cool supplements, adventure books. And so there's a lot coming that we are seeding right now that is going to offer some really dynamic play after the core books come out.
That's so cool.
That's all I can say. I don't like, I feel like, Scott and Sarah like staring through the screen at me, like
don't say it. Don't say it.
No. So
I love that. Yeah, well, that's great. I feel like everyone out there take that cryptic wording and analyze it and try to solve the puzzle of what Elisa Teague is trying to tell us with it. I have some ideas about what that could be, but that sounds very cool. And I've also loved just in terms of storytelling in general, that sort of interesting perspective of what makes someone good and what makes someone bad, right? And kind of how it's all about these fine lines and, sort of what side of the fence you happen to be on. How do you see it? And what are the means that you feel are justified to get what you need done? So I think that will be super cool, because I just love that in general in everything that I enjoy in terms of stories. So that's really awesome. All right. Well, those are the questions that I have for you. So I'm gonna pass it off to Desiree and see what we have in the chat, because I'm sure there are people that got some questions. So yeah, I see Desiree nodding. She's like,
yes, there are. They got their questions in early too.
Perfect.
So let's see. You did actually answer a couple of them already, so that's awesome. But let's see. With all of your D&D based projects, what was the most difficult to write and develop? Yeah, that was the first question.
What was the most difficult to write and develop? I am going to say, I don't know, the most difficult one would probably be, and this is just D&D, I wrote the Gary Con epic I've written a couple of them actually, but the first one I ever wrote, not only was that a challenge because I had major imposter syndrome. I know I've been doing this for a really long time, but when I was asked to do that, I was like, oh crap, this is like a big deal. They're going to be like 1,000 people playing my game all at once in one room, and I have to be there and watch them do it, and hopefully it all goes well. And with, anything could happen, right, at a major convention. And so I wrote the epic based on an idea that Chris Lindsay over at Wizards of the Coast had, which was to take an old AD&D, actually I think it was D&D module, and called the Ghost Tower of Inverness, and have everybody, all those players, go back to it. And this particular module is one that it's awesome, but it is ridiculous also. And it has been widely known as the module that has made very little sense in the terms of actual physics and reality. And but it's well loved and very well known, and it's 40 years old. And at the end of that module, spoiler alerts, 40-year-old spoiler, sorry everybody if you're going to go back to the original Dungeons and Dragons, but at the end of the module, all the characters that survive it put or steal this gem that is in this tower. And I was tasked with writing the sequel. And so it was returned to the Ghost Tower, right? And so I obviously needed to update a couple of things about the tower, including, the fact that everybody knew how it was laid out. But I wanted to keep a lot of the original intent. And part of it was that each level of the tower represented the elements. So there was, an earth level and a fire level, water, and so I kept all of that. I put puzzles in all of it. And the angle that I had was, hey, you wake up in the exact same way you wake up in the original, and like you're arrested. And basically you've been arrested because by taking this gem, you've like released this blight upon the lands. You must go back and put it back, right? And so it was really challenging because I was working with somebody else's original module, somebody I respect very much. And it's a legacy item. When you go back and you play in somebody else's world, not only was I playing in, for Dungeons and Dragons, but also playing with somebody else's exact thing that they made. You have to do it so carefully. and it was very well received, and I was so happy. But it was definitely a challenge to make sure that I was honoring the original while making something really exciting and new, something that I didn't have the chance to see how it was played out by one or two people, aside from like basic playtesting, until it was played by a lot of people all at once. But yeah, it was really fun. That's all. I could talk about it forever, but
that sounds awesome and so stressful.
I work right under stress.
Let's see. Do you prefer to make your own world or play in an established world when writing an RPG or running an RPG?
That's a good question.
That's a favorites question again. What's with all the favorites questions? I love both. No, honestly, I love writing things. When I'm doing game design, I love writing things for IPs that I am a fan of, because it gives me the chance to like say, well, if I was in charge, this is what I would do. But there's a lot more to it than that, because you're not ever really in charge, because you are still working with somebody else's property. You're working, you are still playing in somebody else's sandbox. But it's nice to have that feeling that you are making something for the thing that you love so much. As far as running a game is concerned, I love both for different reasons. I love to, be able to spread the joy of the thing that everybody playing loves. I also really like to make things up on my own, because I have a lot of ideas. And generally speaking, when I'm running a game, I have a basic plan, but I very much do things on the fly, because I like making things up. And when I run private games or games for like D&D in a castle, I'm one of the guest dungeon masters each year when there's not a pandemic going on. I do custom game for my table, and I don't play a module that's already pre-written. I write it for them, specifically for them. I like creating things for the players that I'm playing with, based on what they tell me they want to play, or what kind of character they are, and I'll do something really custom for them. And I go over the top. I'll make custom terrain. I'll make custom puzzles just for them. And I don't know. So I'll say both. That's but it.
No, it makes sense. I like your answer.
I feel like why not both should be like, that's like your tagline,
Yeah.
Why not both, Let's just do it all. I love it.
Good motto.
Let's see. Did you ever LARP? And if you did, which game and what was the character?
So I have not LARPed. And it's interesting because I love cosplay. And so I love getting dressed up in costumes. I love interactive events like Renaissance Fair. I do Wasteland Weekend. I do a lot of things like that. I go to a masquerade ball every year. That is, it's called the, Labyrinth of Jareth. So it's based on Labyrinth. But yeah, and I love making costumes. I love getting dressed up. I never really did a lot of LARPing. I've been around a lot of people who LARP, and a lot of my friends do. When I was a teenager and we were playing, vampire, a lot of my close friends that I'm still friends with to this day were very heavily involved in LARPing vampire here in LA, which was like a really big thing back in the 90s. It was huge. But I don't know. I just never really got into it. I prefer to sit around a table with closer friends and have like a direct connection than being out in a big group of people. I don't know. I also would like, I personally, and that's not to dismiss anybody else's preferences, because I think there's great things about both, but I like crunchier role playing. Like I like rolling dice. I like the game mechanics. Maybe that's the game designer in me, but I like the game mechanics behind it in addition to role playing, not just the role playing. Mm-hmm. And I think I was also pretty shy back then. I'm still I don't know if they call it ambivert or whatever. I'm an introvert mostly. I'm an extrovert when I'm, getting to talk to fun people like you. But I think I was a little too shy. In fact, the first time I ever went to a Renaissance fair, my character was a person who could not speak, because I was so scared to interact with people. I felt like I couldn't do the accents. I couldn't do the stuff. So I just stayed quiet the whole time. And, had as much fun with that as I could at the time. I was 15 years old, but yeah, I think I was a little too shy for it. But there's always time. I can always start LARPing. And well, I mean, again, post-pandemic, I will start LARPing.
Yeah, I love that.
So here's another, I guess, favorite question. What is the name of your current favorite D&D character?
Oh, that's not fair. I'm currently playing, in games that I'm a player, 3 games per week, 3 home games. It's all over, Zoom or Roll20 right now, but they're still home games. And my favorite of them, that's not fair. I love them all. My character from last night's game, her name is Vila, and she stole she stole a boat, an undead ship. And it's pretty awesome. And I will say, I do like her a lot. She has no ability to keep her mouth shut about anything. And she has the lowest charisma. She just says, she talks down to people. She doesn't know she's doing it. She talks down to people all the time, gets in sticky situations. She tells people, she bosses people around. She has just no filter, and she's terrible. And also, the few spells that she does have are all charisma based.
Oh my goodness.
So she never gets them to go. And like one of the funniest things that happened the week prior is that she tried to do one of her spells and it failed. But then another player did something that had the same effect, like right after in the same round. And he succeeded. And she thought she did it anyway, obviously, because she saw it succeed. She didn't know her spell failed. And so, yeah. So, and then she, bragged about it. So I do like her a lot. I like all of my characters. I don't know. It's not really fair to say, but I will say that I'm having fun with her. She's a monster hunter. So she has got this big monster hunting book. And whenever she comes across anything, new, she writes down. And whenever she comes across anything that she can try to recall, she'll look it up. And it's a really cool thing that I kind of have my DM under my thumb with now at this point. So like, well, is it in my monster book? And it probably is. So he has to let me look it up. So I use that to my advantage.
I love it. And I love characters that are just like super uncharismatic and super like boisterous. Those are my favorite people.
It plays in a lot to like, I always try to build, even though I try to optimize characters as much as I can on one hand, I always build in flaws. Flaws are really important to me when I'm watching anything like entertainment media. My favorite things are the ones that have characters that are heroic but deeply flawed, because there really is no perfect person, right? It detaches from any sort of reality or connection. Like I have no emotional attachment to people that don't have, both. They have this deep, dark thing in their life, and then they like overcome it, and they're trying to do something good while still dealing with it. But talking about it, dealing with it is like so important. And I feel like it's not fun. It's kind of like our conversation earlier about losing games. Like I'm super competitive, but I love to lose because it's a challenge. Like nobody wants to play a game where, even like D&D or any role-playing game where it's like, oh, every role is going to succeed. That's boring. That's no fun. Like I want to get into the messy situations, and I want to talk out what happens when somebody makes a mistake, or, like those things are important. So I try to build those into all my characters.
I feel that. And I think it's the struggle. I think that's what we enjoy, right? We enjoy watching people struggle to succeed at stuff or like fail at things and try to get back up. It's more interesting, and it's the human condition. I mean, we do it every day, I guess.
All right. What is the scariest object to toss at a party as a mimic?
The first thing that came into my mind is their baby, but that's like a terrible thing to say. I don't know. I don't know why I have the vision of tossing babies into the party right now. No, not actually tossing. You're talking about it like as a game master. Like, what am I going to put for them to come across? The scariest thing. A toilet? I don't know. That's the second.
I love it.
I don't know. I think that mimics are scary no matter what. I mean, they're super cute in that really ugly sort of way. But yeah, I think a toilet would be pretty scary. I can imagine. I will say one thing. People don't incorporate using the restroom very much in their games.
They don't.
But it is a really important thing that people do every day. And so putting a mimic there, not a bad idea. Everybody put that in your game tonight.
Man, next time I play an RPG, I'm going to try to at one point have a natural moment where my character has to go to the bathroom and see what happens instead of that. That could be fun.
Awesome. So let's see. Your vampire clan.
I have a thing with my friend who said that this is what she says. Every single goth from LA growing up in the time period that we grew up in is automatically a Toreador. And, and I sort of agree. I mean, there are some exceptions for sure, but I still consider, even though I'm bright and cheery underneath it all, I am a goth kid. I have always been, I used to go to high school wearing, and this is in, 90, 100 degree weather, because that's what the weather we have here all the time, in long velvet gowns, black veil over my face, and vampire fangs in. And I went to school like that. I have pictures to prove it. And so I've always found beauty in art, and I was always, the tragic goth kid. And back in those days, we had a lot of goth clubs here in Los Angeles, and it was just a way of life. And so yes, Toreador is my answer.
Awesome. Let's see. Were you or are you much of a Magic the Gathering player? And if so, with all of the off-the-wall licenses headed to Magic the Gathering, what IP would you like to see in Magic, if you do play?
I will answer the first part of this question, which is there was a period of time, I would say about, 15 years ago, where I got really into Magic. I had not played it much. I obviously knew about it. I knew how to play. I played it, a little bit. I was in the game industry already, and but it wasn't like my go-to game. And then I started getting really, really into it, to the point where my boyfriend at the time, we would, our date night would be like going to the game store and buying like boxes basically, and cracking them and drafting together. And like that would be like what we did all the time. And we spent, thousands and thousands of dollars on cards. And I still have my collection right there on my game shelf, sorted in huge notebooks with the Ultra Pro sleeves. And like they're big. I have several notebooks that are about this wide, filled with, those 100, you buy the 100 packs in the box of the 9 sleeve cards, or 9 sleeve sheets, whatever. So I played for a really long time, and then I had to sort of cut my addiction. I will say I did get to write escape rooms for Magic the Gathering, officially, for 1 year, for their, pro tournament. And we did an escape room in Australia and Italy and here in the States in Chicago, and all at the same time over the same weekend. It was really, really awesome. And it was for, which set was that? Shadows over Innistrad. And and that was super fun. And so I'm really into it. I love the storyline. As far as the new IPs are concerned, I cannot talk about it, because there's certain things that I know that as being in the industry, I'm really not allowed to talk about. I do think what they're doing is really cool. And yeah, but other than that, I have to.
All the secrets.
All right. Sounds good. I believe that was the last question for us in chat.
Awesome. That was a cool question too. Awesome. Well, thank you for all those amazing questions, Renegades out there. You always have such great questions. Yeah. They're insightful, those renegades. They got lots of good things to ask about. I'm like, yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Lisa. It's been so lovely talking to you, and I feel like I still have so many questions. We'll have to talk again at some point.
Well, yeah, no, definitely. I will 100% come back whenever you all want me to. And so I'm always here. And if anybody out there has more questions, you can always just tweet at me. I will answer them as best as I can. And yeah, it was so lovely being here.
Yeah, thank you. And we'll definitely have to play some Alice is Missing. That's a thing that's going to happen at some point for sure. Before you go, if you could just remind us who you are, what you do, and of course, where we can find you and your work online so everyone can make sure they're following you everywhere and staying up to date with all of the projects that you do.
I'm Elisa Teague. I am the senior producer of role-playing games here at Renegade Game Studios. And you can find me on the internets at on Twitter. You can find me at Geeky Pinup. You can find me on Facebook. Oh, I need to update my Facebook stuff too, but it's at the Elisa Teague. And you can find information about everything that I'm working on at the Renegade website. Please go there and check out all the cool stuff that's coming. And we have some cool announcements that are coming soon. And yeah, maybe when those happen, I'll come back and we can talk about those new things.
Ooh, yeah, that sounds awesome. I'm so down for that. All right. Well, before we head out then, I just would like to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you so much for being here. And thank you for all of your insightful questions, seriously. And yeah, a couple quick updates just to remind you about. So we do have the Clank in Space Adventures Pulse Arcade coming soon. You can pre-order that in the US, and that is an expansion for Clank in Space. So definitely check that out. We also have the Gretzko, which is with Oni Games, and that is available for pre-order. And that game looks super fun. And of course, our Twitch schedule, you can always join us on Mondays for our More Phenomenal Mondays, where we will be streaming our monthly scenarios and more. And Wednesdays are, of course, for Vampire Wednesdays. So make sure you tune in for that. And every Friday, I will be here with you doing our Renegade Society radio show. So come on back and chat with us and all of the amazing guests that we've had on the show. Thank you so much for joining us, Elisa. And before we go, that code word one more time is Puzzle Shark, and that is for the Wordlings campaign guide. So Desiree will have that link in the chat. Enter that, and my fingers are crossed for everyone. All right. Thank you so much, Elisa, for joining us.
Thank you.
And thank you, Desiree, for producing, as always, behind the scenes. All right, friends, I'll see you in the next one. And until next time, remember to play your game.